Okay, so the one way would be, or the main way without having to do very much extra is just to do your if-else's. You just have to write a ton of different if-else cases here. And notice I'm saying ors here and ands here. Or make an array and then loop through the array. Every will return. So you guys did the everys and the sums and whatnot and filters in the JS30 cardios, the array cardios. So you understand how these all work, yeah? Okay, so whatever you return in this callback is what this will use to determine whether or not every is true, right? And then filter it'll just return a new array with all of the ones that return true for the callback. So in this case, we're returning true or false on each one. So we don't have to do anything except for just return itself. But typically when you do a filter, you're checking to make sure it matches something, or an every or a sum, right? So, and then this one says not every, because we said we don't want any of them, okay? All right, so good to go to the next one? Okay. Yes?
I'm just gonna.
No? Yes? No?
Yeah,
Yes?
okay, I'm just gonna wait for the recording,
Okay.
get all that.
Should I go back to the recording and scroll very slowly so you can pause it?
Well, yes, if you can go back from top to bottom, that'd be pretty amazing. Slowly. Very, very slowly. I like your slow. It's hyper slow.
It was almost painfully so.
He's like, oh god, my fingers are hurting. I'm so slow. Hold it.
All right.
All right.
Exercise 2, summer camp. Has anybody done this one yet?
No.
Okay. Campers at summer camp can choose one of 3 afternoon activities: swimming, archery, or pottery. Swimmers must use the buddy system. Buddy! Anybody see heavyweights?
Oh my gosh, that's such a good
Yeah. The body system?
one.
The body
Is this
system?
on Disney
Body! Body! Body!
You talking about the 1995 film?
Yes.
Yes, that's so
Were you alive then?
I was not.
That is
Yes.
oh.
Yeah,
Has
mix.
Kenan Thompson in it?
Yes, LOL sob.
No, bro, I'm still attached to meatballs.
Mm.
Meatballs will always be the number one summer camp.
But yeah, heavyweights has Ben Stiller in it though.
Oh, and he's
Yeah.
insane.
And he's
Kenan
absolutely
Thompson
insane.
and Stiller.
Yes, and it's got the goalie from Mighty Ducks.
Nice. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm on it.
Oh, yeah, Disney Plus, yeah.
Yeah, it's on Disney
You got
Plus.
it, at least.
I do have it.
Maybe we'll have to have a watch party.
Tron's on Disney Plus,
Yes.
too.
We have
The
like
Disney
12
movie.
movies to watch
We have a
together.
lot.
Yes, this one should go to the top.
It should.
Now that I've just talked about it.
Every day.
Body. All right, so swimmers must use the body system. If there's not an even number of swimmers, swimming is canceled and swimmers are reallocated to archery and pottery with the following rules. Add swimmers to the activity with the least participants until numbers are even, then distribute swimmers evenly, starting with pottery first. If there are an even number of swimmers, everyone gets their preferred activity. Okay? And then looks like this, so it's a downward thing here is the scenarios. Scenario 1 goes like that. So change these numbers to test each scenario. Write your distribution code here. One of the code must work for all scenarios. Confirm results for each scenario. Okay. So this gives us kind of an opportunity to use some testing tools as well.
Yeah.
So
That's
the-
is even.
Yeah, we'll like test to make sure that if we're given these numbers for swimmer, archery, and potters, that we get these numbers for swimmers, archers, and potters.
Mhm.
Okay, so So we need to write probably a function here that does this. Oh, there's a distribution code. So let's see. And it said to distribute swimmers evenly, starting with pottery first. Okay. So we first let's test swimmers, right? So const test swimmers equals amount. And we'll just write some small functions and then have a bigger function that runs all these small functions. So test swimmers is, we're going to say if, actually we'll just say amount, and then do you remember this modulus?
That's like a mayor.
Yeah, so we're going to modulus 2, and it should equal 0. Okay? So I'm going to take out the curly braces and just do it as an imperative return. And I'm going to rename test swimmers to swimmers is even. Okay? So now if I call swimmers is even and I pass it the number 3, I should get false back. So I'm going to open here. I'm going to run node exercise 2. And, oh yeah, you should probably console.log that so that I can check it. So false, right? If it's 6, I should get a true back. True. Okay. So swimmers is even works. Okay. So now let's do another function, because if we get, let's do like a main function. We'll just call it main. Okay, and this will be our function that we run to make sure that this all works. And I'm also going to accept parameters here, because I don't want to take these numbers from the global. I want it to be passed into my function. Okay, so that way we can write some functions for each of these scenarios, and we don't have to sit and change these by hand each time. Okay, so instead we're going to say, I'm going to comment these out so they're not global anymore. And I'm going to accept them here. And I'm going to do it as an object. Okay, so I'm going to destructure the object in place here. And because I'm OCD, it needs to be in order alphabetically. So that's all I care about. Okay, so first off, I'm going to write some pseudocode here. And I'm going to do that in comments. I'm going to say, here we need to check if swimmers is even. If it is, return the results that were passed in, right? Because we should just return whatever everything is. If swimmers is even, we don't redistribute anyway. Okay, then if it isn't, we should redistribute swimmers starting with pottery. Add some spacing here. This is just so I remember what I need to do in this. Then return the results. Okay, so we're going to check here. We'll say if swimmers is even, and we'll pass it the swimmers. Okay. And in this case, we can just return right here, and then we won't have to worry about writing an else case. Okay. So we just say return, and I'm going to just return an object of my archers, potters, and swimmers. Okay. And because this is the variable name and the same name for my key, I can just put it once. I don't have to do archers like that. Okay. So it's just shorthand on here. Now, if it was named something else, I'd have to put it over here, right? If I want to say archer amount or something like that. But because they're the same, I can just throw it in there and I'm good. Okay. So now we already will pass case number 2, right? Because it's just going to return exactly what we got. So let's write a test now, okay? And we're gonna say, I'm gonna comment these console logs out too because I don't care about them. We'll write it underneath this comment of confirmed results. So I think there's an expect here. Let me think. Let's just look really quick. Node expect. Oh, not that one. Node built-in expect. Assert, that's what it is. It's called assert. And I just want to look at how you use it. If I have to pull anything in. Yeah, assert from node assert. Let's look, this is 18.6 and I'm on, everybody run node-v and see what version you're on.
Is that a V, not B, right?
V, yep. You're on 18.6?
Do 16, 14.
Yeah, I'm on 16. Yeah. So this is like the current one that they're working on. It hasn't been released yet. Like it's not stable yet. So I typically stay on the stable and then I'll go to the latest. I'll move to the new stable. So they have like a release pattern.
So which one are you?
16.
Oh, okay.
I think. What do you use to change it? Do you have N installed? You should. I think we installed N at the very beginning. So you could just do N use 16, I think is what it is.
Is it dash U16?
No, I think it's just use. N use.
Oh, use.
Use the
Yeah.
first.
Or N install 16. If you don't have the latest 16, you can just do that. So everybody can do this
I
N
got
install 16.
16.14, so.
Yeah, it shouldn't matter. They're just installing patches.
Okay.
Pseudo required or change ownership or define any methods.
It's just sudo.
This is an upgrade every day, I swear.
How did you know whether to use to turn it into an array or an object?
Which one?
Both of them.
Just from writing code a lot. So in this case, like you could accept this however you want, right? Or you could even have used the globals. It's just preferences. So my preference is not to accept globals and to accept it as part of the function, so that I always know I can reuse this anywhere I want, right?
But you could have done the same thing if you turned it into an array, right?
Kind of. It's just how you pass it, right? So in an array, if I did an array here, then I have to make sure I pass an array, and it's not as convenient. So arrays are more meant for like sequential data that doesn't matter what it's named, right? And an object you're going to use more along the lines of I want. So when I call main, right? I'll show you. If I call main with an array, I would call it like this. Okay? And then I have to assume that this is Archer's and this is, right? Like, I don't have any way of knowing how to call this function without going and looking up the function. Now, if I use an object, then I would say Archers, Potters, Swimmers. right? So now I know that I'm naming these, and it doesn't actually matter what order I put them in. I can do that, and then this function will still work because it's based on the name, not the order. Whereas an array would be based on the order,
Oh, okay, yeah, I got you.
right? So I'm essentially, if I do an array this way, I'm naming the indexes
Right.
as variables. It'd be the same thing as, so I could just accept this as props, and then I'd say const archers equals props dot archers is what the other thing is doing for me, so I don't have to write these parts of code.
Right.
Oops. Okay. Now, if I was expecting this to be an array instead of an object, then it would be archers 0, or props 0, props 1,
Right.
and props 2 for swimmers. And then if somebody passed in these in the wrong order, they did swimmers, archers, potters, then I just assign swimmers to archers. Potters would be right, but archer, you know.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's less likely to cause bugs if you use an object.
Right.
So you want to use objects when you're working with like the
Mhm.
values.
Yeah. So yeah, an array is going to be when you have like a ton of data that's all the same type.
Oh,
So, right, I have an array of strings, and it doesn't matter what order they're in, and it doesn't matter if there's just a bunch of strings. Or I have an array of objects, right? Or an array of numbers, but the numbers aren't specific to a certain thing. It's just a bunch of numbers. Okay, so now if I call that function, and we want to, I'm going to use this 61321. So 6, and then was it archers next? 1321. I should get back these numbers. So node dash v, or node, what's this called? Exercise 02. Oh yeah, and then console log. Okay, so then I get back those same numbers. Okay, so now we're going to use that assert thing that I was talking about. So I'm going to say assert. And is it asserts? This is a download. I don't want to download. I want docs, but I want docs for 16. And then I want to look at assertion testing. Yeah, okay. It's from assert. I was wondering. So in 18, they're going to change the imports. Okay, so I'm going to delete that, and at the top here, I'm going to say import assert from assert. Okay. Did you get 16 down? Because 18 was different. Okay. So I'm going to take this console log off here. I say assert dot, and then let's look at what is in assert. input that is checked for being truthy. Message string error. Assert.db equal. Okay, so let's say assert deep equal. We're gonna say our first object is gonna just be this object that we're creating here, right? And then the second one is gonna be us calling this function. So it's gonna look like this. And then we'll run node and see if it works. Broken. Trying to think. Let's change this to const assert equals require assert. Okay. I'm just going to change this to 7 and see what happens. Okay. So yeah, I changed it to this,
You change what? Oh,
the top line. Instead of an import, it should be const assert. We could write a function to do this, but we should just use what's already available. And this is how you will write unit tests, is this type of functionality. You may not use Node's unit testing capability like this, but we'll get it deeper into testing later. So, and you could totally have just, changed the numbers, ran it, console logged it, and then made sure it matched up and been like, cool. But this will automate it for us, and it's good to know how to do that as well.
right.
Okay, so the way assert works, assert, and then it has some functions on it. Deep equal will just say, we're going to give it an object and then another object, and if they don't equal each other, then it'll throw an error like over here, and if they do equal each other, it will do nothing. Okay, so if you don't get an error, then you're good, but if you do get an error, then you're bad. Okay.
You're going to be replacing the values in your objects here to like make it more in line with like the different scenarios.
Yes, so we'll just write multiples of these.
Me back.
So we'll say, and because like this is the only one that will be the same, right? The rest of them had different ones. So I'm just going to I'm going to do all of the values now because it's good to see your failing tests so that you can watch them fall off as you fix them. Okay, so I'm going to say assert dot deep equal, and I'm going to copy these like this, and then I'm going to change the numbers. So the first one should be the new ones, and this should be the input, right? So if can I open this to the side? Come on, let me open it to the side. Yes. Okay, so I'm just gonna go right here. Okay, so this top one, I'm going to do this scenario 1, and I'm going to say Archer's input is 10, Potter's input is 12, and Swimmer's is 9. And then the output should be 15 on Archer's, 16 on Potter's, and 0 on Swimmer's. Okay. I'm going to copy this one because it's going to be less changes with the zeros. So scenario number 3 is 5 swimmers in, 20 archers, and 5 potters. And then on the output, it should be 0 swimmers, 20 archers, and 10 potters. So all the potters go to or all the swimmers go to the potter. Okay. That's,
You're doing the output on the top?
yeah, we could switch it. Just do this. Right?
Oh, yeah, but I didn't know that we were doing them separate. I was looking at the number 2, because it would stay the same.
Yeah, so scenario 1. And then scenario 2. So the input is going to be wherever you're calling the function, right? And then the output is going to be whatever you're hard coding. Scenario 3, and then scenario 4, and in scenario 4 the output is 0 swimmers and 11 of both archers and potters, and the input is 0 archers, 11 potters, and 11 swimmers. Okay, we'll go scenario 5, and that one is going to have an input of 99 swimmers, 3 archers, and 7 potters. And this output is going to be 54 archers and 55 potters. Okay, scenario 6, which is the last scenario. All of the inputs are 3, and the output should be 4 archers and 5 potters. Okay, close this guy. So if I open up my node and I run it, then it's going to tell me that there was an error and that,
You're bad.
yes, expected undefined. Okay, so and we're getting this expected undefined because we're only doing a return from main if the swimmers is even. Does this make sense so far? And remember, this assertion thing is just bonus because I didn't want to write a function to do it, and I didn't want to sit and change them and then check them. We'll just let the computer do that. It's smarter than us at that. Let me know when you're all ready to move on, and we'll write the rest of the main function. And if you're ahead, you're welcome to start writing the main function if you think you know how to do it.
Yeah, just
Move
the top
up?
one, yeah.
Yes. There's 1, 2, and 3. I guess technically, with the way this is, because it's saying expected is undefined and actual is this, I should be doing it this way because this second one is the one that they want it to be expected, but it's okay. Your family come home next week?
No, 2 weeks.
Still miss the first week of school?
Well, let me see, what is this? What day is this?
Today is the
19th? They come
19th.
back on the 4th.
Yeah, so they miss the first week of school.
Oh, really? So I guess it's not really that important to go to school then, I guess.
Yeah. Well,
We're getting school.
unless
Well, they
Calaheo
are going to school
school,
right now. They're going to school in Japan, so,
unless Calaheo school ends or starts later.
yeah.
But I think we start on the 1st.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, the
See.
first week is just
We'll see.
where's your composition notebook and
Yeah.
I'm your teacher and this is where the playground is and what do you mean you've been here before?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And then the last week of school is kind of the same thing.
What do you mean you've been here before?
Yeah.
You're bigger.
Right. We good? Everybody got the assertions all written? Okay. Up in the where, or the main here, if it is return the results that were passed, goes up here, right? So if it isn't, we should redistribute swimmers starting with pottery. Okay, so in this case, we need to redistribute all the swimmers. So the easiest way to do that is to just write a for statement. Okay, so we're going to say for, and we're going to create a value called x is equal to 0. Okay, and then while x is less than swimmers, and then what happens to x each time the loop finishes, x plus plus. Okay, so this is our variable we're using to loop through. This is the condition that it must meet in order to run a loop again, and this is what happens to the variable at the end of running the loop, or the function, right, within the loop. Okay, so now we're going to say, inside of here, we're going to say if Potters is greater than Archers, and well, first we probably don't want to mutate this object coming in because these are going to be constants. So here we're going to also make a const. We'll call this return value equals an object, and we're going to say Archers, Potters, and Swimmers, and we're going to set Swimmers to 0.
Quick question.
Yes.
So it's saying to distribute them evenly, starting with pottery first.
Yes.
So is it going to, like having if Potters is greater than Archers, is that going to have it distributed until they're even? And then once Archers is greater, then it will start
Yes.
distributing evenly? Wouldn't you want it to, like, no matter if they were even or not, to distribute one and one and one and one and one and one?
That's not what it looks like it does. So, because it says evenly distribute them. So like if we look at 99 and Archers is 3 and Potters is 7, they end at 54 and 55. Whereas if we just evenly distribute all of them, this would still be 4 less than this as opposed to 1 less.
Then What's up with scenario 3 then? Oh, it's just putting all of them in.
All of them went to the Potters because it was still less than
Yeah,
Archers.
okay.
So add swimmers to the activity with the least participants until numbers are even, is what it says to do. And then distribute swimmers evenly, starting with pottery first.
Cool, I missed that last one.
So if Potters is greater than or equal to Archers, because we don't want to have Archers ever be higher than Potters, right? Let's see. Potters is greater than, or let's just say greater than, because yes. Then the only time we would put in Archers is if Potters is greater. If they're equal, then Potters still gets it, right? Then we say return val dot Archers plus equal 1. No, not plus equal 1. Plus equal or equals return value dot Archers plus 1. And this also needs to be return val dot Potters and return val dot Archers. So, and that's because I wanted to create a new variables and not use the old ones, right? So else, and we do this, but we're going to switch this to Potters, this to Potters, and then we should be able to return the return val. Let's see if we. Woo! If I do this, it should break. Right? So if you run it and you get nothing back, then great success.
Why are your actual and expected flipped?
Because
Put it out flip?
because we should have flipped these. We should call the function on the top line
Okay.
and the hard coded on the bottom line, like that. But because I had already copied them all and you guys were all writing them, I didn't want to flip them. But they should be flipped like this. Okay, so now if I break it, then my actual and my expected are in the right place. Okay, so whose is not working? Okay, so where's that line data swimmers? Oh, because we renamed it from test swimmers to swimmers is even, so just copy that name and paste it on top of that. So it's just complaining that you're calling a function that doesn't exist. If you push up, and then enter. So, yeah, and then you can break it by changing like this to 2 or something, and just make sure that it throws an error when you break it.
I mean, I saw
The
that
actual
picture.
inspector variance must be specified. So look at all of your asserts. Cause it looks like one of them is maybe called for me. Oh, so you have you're ending your cert right there. One more, so that's actually the, and then do a comma.
Oh, for all of them?
Yeah, and then you need another, and closing parenthesis before the and.
Is it for all of them or?
Yeah. So what you could do is move this one above, and then you can just hit enter after this, and move this line underneath that one.
This one?
Nah, just do the thing we just did.
What is that whole line? If it isn't, we should redistribute swimmers starting, what's after swimming? When's it starting?
What?
I don't know the whole line. If it isn't, we should redistribute swimmers starting.
Oh, starting with otters first.
Oh, okay, thank you.
That was just my pseudo notes.
The term was controlled.
Jeez.
I still got,
You okay?
assertion object.
Archers 54, Potters 55. And your Potters ends up in 44. So where's that one at? Oh yeah, but where's this assertion down here?
Oh, is it just?
I think you wanted that to be 55.
I look out of my window every 5 to 10 minutes. Isn't that crazy? I mean, somebody breaks through your car, so now you're like,
Oh my gosh, yeah.
I'm like, every 5 minutes I'm like this. It's crazy. How easy our brain is controls.
So, yeah, just make sure that that is correct as far as restrictions go.
Oh, you mean we have to the right? Oh, I don't have that either.
What do you like?
She's trying to.
Oh, it's just no color space, and then exercise, and it's the one designing, so it'd be O2, and then, no, it's all one word.
Oh.
Push it up. And then just backspace. And enter. There you go. So,
We did it, huh?
I got nothing.
so let's see. Go scroll down.
There's 10. Well, I know some of these numbers are not
It looks like in one spot you're not calling name, you're just giving a name to the. Oh, down in the assertions. 'Cause see how it says that it's expecting this object, but it gets functions.
Did somebody break in?
Nope. We're all
Is
good
there
down
glass
there.
all over the ground? Did somebody sit in the car looking at you?
Nope, you're clear. Today's your day.
Okay. So for the next couple of weeks, I'm going to be thinking somebody's breaking in. But right now, isn't that weird?
How long does that process, like,
Oh, no. You mean when that happened?
It's that extra line.
Oh, it was crazy. Well, you know what? I mean, as soon as I passed her
It's a function.
and I felt that vibe and I went to my car and looked in at my job, Plantation Holly. So basically, I looked and I said, okay, maybe I left my computer at home and I didn't realize it because I went out so quick last night or whatever. But you know what made me realize that she stole? Plus, I was missing this, and this never leaves my car. I always keep it on my back seat.
You're like,
And
"If I don't
that's
have
when I
that."
realized I started running, trying to find it. Because the computer's in the bag. I was like, well, maybe I put the bag and forgot the,
Yeah.
So
whatever.
that was the only thing that was.
That's the one that like totally said she, because I always have my computer in the car, so
Yeah.
or so I just think,
Yeah.
oh well, sometimes I leave it at home because I know I'm not going to be at work right now.
Right.
But not that this thing stays in my car all the
Yeah,
time.
mine's too. That it hasn't even.
So that's so luckily she stole that because honestly I might have been like,
Yeah,
let me go home and check.
That would make me like, that's on me. I wouldn't even do that.
So, but once I see that she was gone and I wasn't gonna be able to catch her,
Zero
my
level.
heart just dropped.
Are you kidding me?
Because all my projects,
Straight
everything.
panic.
Yeah, I panicked. I jumped in the car, drove all Baby Beach all the way down the other end of Capal.
So stressful.
Yeah.
And then you keep.
And then I came back and called the police.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then they helped you?
They found her. I cannot believe they found her in like less than 30 minutes.
That's surprising.
Keep- I
I
mean-
got screwed.
Yeah, because usually I don't call the
Getting stuff
police.
stolen?
Usually my mind would say they're not gonna help, so let me just try them.
Yeah. Good thing you tried though, because yeah, I've had things stolen and it never came back to me.
Yeah.
And they said they had those.
Simple things too, like bikes and stuff. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm glad you got it.
That was the first time I've ever had a positive, positive. So I
Gotta put an alarm in
mean,
it.
well, I know. I was thinking, man, a chip, put some little chip in there somewhere,
Yeah.
so I can locate it on my own.
Return space.
So scary. Oh, you can, just like your iPhone. I think.
Yeah, really?
Yeah.
So I
On
should,
your
the first thing I thought about,
40.
maybe Rich has a,
Oh.
he put a sensor in there, just, you know, he
Yeah.
didn't let us know, but he put one in there just so I was
Yeah.
gonna call him and say, is there a sensor you
Yeah. Thanks, Sharice. Now is a good time to actually turn on Find My iPhone. Make sure it's on.
Yeah, yep, exactly.
So save that.
I'm gonna do that later.
Do Control
Yeah,
C.
mine's on. Good.
Can I borrow somebody's lawn charger?
Shop once.
You need this part?
Yeah.
This is the fast.
Okay, somewhere it's returning that.
Yeah.
It should be, so let's see, where else are we returning the results?
She's busy. iPad.
So where's the video?
Hold up, how's my, what? Oh, you reversed them, that's why. You have going back and reverse.
Oh.
So main should be on the top.
Karen.
Did you go back in and reverse everything?
Refresher?
Reverse everything? The
So-
main?
No, I just made a like. Oh yeah, I did.
You did that? Okay. If you did it, I'll
We'll
do
need
it.
to scroll up and we'll look at, or scroll
Because
to
these are
the numbers.
main
Right,
is
right,
input,
right.
Bottom is output.
Mm-hmm. I know, I get it. Just those lazy types.
Mine are backwards from yours now, so your top line should be my bottom line. 18660.
Feel better.
Yeah, so you're still the same, huh? Yeah, but you're still recovering.
Yeah, but I'm a lot better.
Okay.
Just push out. Enter. Okay, so now, that's a new one. So what's your second one?
Oh, it's opposite.
Yeah,
Oh,
this
but
should
they're
be the
both the
same.
same.
So
Okay.
what's your 3?
So 3 and 0,
0, 20, 10.
0,
It should be 0 on swimmers though.
Oh, okay, it's the opposite.
Should be 0 or
10,
20,
20,
20 archers, 10 potters, and no swimmers. And then the input is 20 archers, 5 potters, and 5 swimmers. There's the other ones.
That's me there.
Yeah.
I haven't finished the first one yet.
Yeah, it's just nice.
0, 11, 11. 0 archers, 11 spotters, 11 swimmers. It should be your second line. So you have 0, 11, 11. And then the output is 11 archers, 11 potters, and 0 swimmers. And the next one, your top line should be 54, 55, 0. And bottom is 3, 7, 99. And the last one, the top line should be 4, 5, 0. And the bottom line should be 3, 3, 3. Yeah, we're ready.
What's this copy, Christian? Cortisol and that thing?
Yeah.
What was your saying?
Thank you.
If you have too much cortisol, it makes you sleepy.
That makes
And this coffee removed your cortisol. It's a cortisol blocker.
Is it?
I don't know.
Because a while ago
Oh,
I
I don't know
was
to do that. Oh, I just messed up. Okay.
Alright,
Control.
caffeine's effect on cortisol may be greater in persons with higher levels of central nervous system activation. That's fine. In
Is
the
it?
present study, caffeine enhanced cortisol release during mental stress, but the effect was statistically significant only in women.
Isn't cortisol the anxiety,
Yeah.
right?
I found out why coffee makes me sleep sometimes. That's interesting. Never thought I'd ever found that.
Because you're anxious.
Yeah. High levels of cortisol.
What was scenario 2 again? Sorry. Could you go back
Yeah, there it is.
to So it is the same.
Remember-
Okay, it was the same. I was like,
Yeah.
how's it the same? Okay, so it is the same.
Yeah, they should be the same. He's the
Okay.
only one that gets the input and the output
Gotcha.
are the same because swimmers was even.
Right. Okay.
Okay, that makes sense. Did adding assertion just totally make that one too hard?
No,
No,
Okay.
it was good.
I think that function's pretty straightforward, or what a
Okay.
session does.
Cool,
Yep.
sweet. So let's move to the next one.
Number 3.
We'll do this until 8 o'clock,
Okay.
and then we'll switch gears.
So, tailwind, or
Um,
tailpipe or something?
switch mod day. Oh, yeah. Tailwind. Given a positive day, assuming that day 1 is Monday, day 2 is Tuesday, day 9 is Tuesday, because the day's wrapped, day 21 is Sunday, etc. Use the switch statement to print the appropriate day of the week. You should be able to handle all positive integers. Okay, so how would you do this?
Well, you would just do K's.
Okay.
So you have
What if I gave you day 100? Would you write the cases for all of those days?
no, it would have to be like a maybe like a multiple of it, but that runs the problem of 2 and 4.
Let me give you an example here, or a hint of what I think. Oh, we want to
So
do,
then it would just return over 7. Okay.
so
Yeah,
number
that
5,
makes
right?
sense.
So if
It's 5, then
Day.
Friday.
modulus 7, right, is 5, if it was 1, it's going to return 1, 2, 2, 14, that's 15, 0. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, but we start at 1,
Okay.
so this is how I would do. So I would make const days of the week an array, and we would have, what does it start with, Sunday or Monday? Monday. So we could start with Monday, or we could switch it and start with Sunday. Okay, see where I'm going here? Because Monday is 1, Sunday is 7,
Hmm.
Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Thursday.
Wouldn't you want to just run day through it?
What?
Don't you just want to run day through it?
I did run day through it. But if I want to just check, I could also say 4 x is equal to 0, x is less than 100, x plus plus, console.log, get day name, x. Right? So maybe I do,
That would be relevant up to 100. Or 199.
yes, up to 99. Right? So, and we could look at our 16 should be Tuesday, and it is. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So modulus in those type of situations is really handy,
Yep.
and it's fun to remember that it'll always just like reset, right? So 8 modulus 7 is 1 because that's the remainder.
Great for scenarios like these.
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing too, like, you'll use this sometimes. Like, it's good to know, oh yeah, I can use modulus to do that. But some of these tests are kind of like, they're not super practical. But this is the kind of things that people do on interviews. Is this kind of exercise. So, I don't know if FizzBuzz is in here or not. Let's see. You've seen FizzBuzz? Okay. FizzBuzz is a common interview question. Checking a word for if it's a palindrome or not used to be kind of common.
What is this thing I subscribe to?
Leet code, Leet code, or code. There's a bunch of different like
Yeah. They just email
challenge
you.
ones. A challenge every day or something.
Yeah. Some of them got pretty complicated.
Yeah. That's the thing, like some of them are like, I could spend a few hours figuring this out, but I'll never use it. So,
Yeah. I don't know if I would want to.
and this is what I was saying yesterday, like the algorithms are good to know how to use, but also some of the algorithms that you'll get into in LeetCode code and those kind of things are not necessarily very practical for what you'll do in front end. Now, if you're gonna go try and do more server-side development or get into where you have to start considering O of N and different algorithms and how they affect memory and everything, then it's really good to study up on that stuff. And then doing some of those algorithmic problems is worthwhile. So just depends on what you decide to do after this.
Mhm.
But have we got this one? Okay, let's do number 4. This time I will give you direction and then I will let you guys try and build it and see where you go. Okay. Loops. Execute the existing code. Note all output modified code output must match existing code output. Rewrite the loops as prescribed in numbered tasks. Oh, okay. Rewrite this while as a for. Output must be identical. So this wants you to run the code in number 4. Why does it say is done? Oh, that's coming from this one. Okay, so the first one just turns it around backwards. So I want you to take this while loop right here and rewrite it to be a for loop, like what we're writing. So you're gonna do for like that, right? We'll comment this out. And then rather than messages.length is greater than 0, we would do, I'll let you guys start on that and then I'll help you in a minute. So, because we've just written 2 for loops in the last 2 things, so should have a decent idea of how to write a for loop. And you shouldn't need to do the same code here. You'll change this code up. I guess you could basically do that same code. I'm going to disconnect this and then I'll write code as well. No peeking, Travis. Let's make it small. You can't see it if it's small.
You've been used to that at school. I see you.
All right, you can look all you want now, Travis.
Like this, right? Oh, look, right?
No, man, just use a reflection off the window.
Oh, yeah, there it is.
Huh, outside looks so
Oh,
good.
outside, somebody's bringing it to my car.
Yeah, you can see it now, yeah.
Oh, look at that. Terrible. Trying to make me go blind for real.
You need to get your new glasses so you
It's
can
coming,
cheat
it's
off me.
coming, man. Big Coke bottle glasses.
Can you just use the letter code?
Yeah. It's gonna be different though, slightly.
Oh, yeah.
How you doing? Broken?
For some reason, like, it gives me the output, but then it stops. Like, it doesn't let me, my terminal doesn't, register another, like, slot for a command.
So it's stuck?
Yeah.
So most likely you're creating an infinite loop.
Oh. I'm fine.
It's because your while loop right there. You
Yeah.
can probably count that out
Yeah.
because it never does anything.
Good point. numbers now.
So we don't need to use the X variable that we created for the for loop as opposed to cutting up the message and rebuilding it.
Okay.
That's how I did it. So everybody have the skeleton of the for loop done? Your for, and then all the conditions that must be met for it to run, and what happens when it runs? Are you ready for me to spoil it for you?
No.
Not yet?
Maybe. I got already, which is not backwards.
It's not spoiled yet. This is just my terminal. And Travis couldn't cheat because I put it real small. I was having a hard time reading it.
I won't even do it.
In fact, while I was doing it, I was thinking, I'm streaming this. So it'll be fun to watch.
Watch how we bully Travis.
Well, you'll see also, I think it's recording me. So I'm like,
Look at these glasses.
I can't see anything on here.
Ah, Travis.
All on the glasses.
Travis, can I borrow your glasses? Can't see it.
All my fallopian tubes.
Oh man. Was everybody here on that day?
No.
You guys were on.
I think Teresa, Christian was like, man, there's no fallopian tubes in your brain, bro. He's like, man, he's up on the screen like.
I don't think that's where those are.
I don't think you have any in your brain. Oh, God. This guy's on TV. Out of here.
But everybody was here in some fashion, right?
Yeah.
We all heard
We
you
all
say
heard,
that?
yeah.
Perfect.
You heard it.
Like I told him, I'm gonna try to create an icon, some sort of, but you gotta do like, what do you gotta put some stuff together to me. I want to make that and let that be my avatar.
You're an
A
artist.
brain, some tubes coming out,
It's coming
Yeah.
brain tubes.
in. Graphic design, right?
Yeah. Travis is an
Gotta
artist.
work on that.
He
because
can
I gotta make that character.
use Figma to do it.
Yep. There you go.
I'm thinking.
All right, I'm gonna spoil the first one. Okay, so this is the while loop, and I just recreated message and results so that I wouldn't have to. But I don't actually do the same thing. I don't rebuild it. So the for loop starts with first giving it a variable, right? And I started at 1 instead of 0, so that when I subtract it, it subtracts 1 off the length, right? As opposed to having to add to the length and then subtracting. So, but because I do 1, I also add 1 to the length so it doesn't end too early. Okay, so like I said, you could start at 0, get rid of this, and then I think if you add 1 here and then subtract, it will return the same results. Nope. And it dies a horrible death. Maybe it's minus 1 minus x. There we go. Okay, so we'll do that instead. So start at 0, and then while x is less than the length of the message, then we'll run it, and then x plus plus. Okay, and then here is all you have to do is say message, and then this is the index of message that you're going to take, which is the length minus 1, so 1 back on the end of the string, minus x. Now the reason we do the minus 1 here is length is counted starting at 1. Array is counted starting at 0, right? So we want to make the length 1 less than it should have been, or than it's going to be, to mimic what the index on the array is. And then I minus whatever x is. So this will get the last letter, or this will get, whatever the length of the array is, minus, so the first one's the last letter, and all the way to the first letter. Because x will eventually become the length of the array. Okay, and then I just logged it over here. And I kept the while there just so I could make sure, but you could just comment out the while because you don't really necessarily need both of them to log, to know that it says artichoke backwards. Okay, so does that make sense? Yeah? One other thing you could do is you could just say message.split on everything, then reverse it, then join it, and that does the same thing. Okay, so this turns message from a string into an array, and we split it on every single character. So that's an array that's just each thing. Then reverse the array and then rejoin it on each character. But it asked us to do a for loop instead. Okay. The next for loop is pretty much just you take whatever and paste it, right? So the next one's easier than the first one, and the last one is a do while instead of a while, and I'll let you look up how to do a do while versus a while. But the next two are slightly easier than the first one, I'd say. So save where you're at, and then this is where you can start back up when you start into homework. For it is after 8 o'clock, and we must start on tailwind, light wind, tailspin stuff, kick flips, all the kick flips. Okay, so I'm closing it. You're welcome. But I should have left it at least somewhat open so that I could. All right. So I'm going to, in Dev Island, go to projects, and I'm going to make a new project. Call it Tailwind CSS with the number 16. Okay, so everybody get an empty project into VS Code. So So several ways you could do it for terminal. Do what I just did and go to your projects folder in Finder and make it, and then drag it into code. You can think you could probably say open. Say an open folder. And then use the new folder here and pick it. But however you want to do it, you just need to get into a new project that's empty. Once you're in a new project, you're going to run npm init -y in your terminal inside the project. So make sure that you're this and this matched, right? I'm going to run to the restroom while you all do that.
Yeah, took forever. She's like, yeah. I'm like, after you forgot where it was and
File or a folder?
huh? Over here, I found it.
Yeah, just drop that. I mean, the yeah. Or just over like that. Like that. Jump into the file finder.
Oh, file finder? Yeah. I know. And that's why I don't even use it anymore. It wasn't like that before. Something happened and it just, all my stuff was gone, so I decided not to use it ever again. Yeah, so it's and then we just run.
And then you run the
NPM, okay.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, or use JSON here.
Go to the folder, and just open up more projects and then make a new folder, and then we just drag it into the JSON. Yes.
The reason I didn't know where my project was, because he did. A lot of times he'll come, he won't show me, he'll just come over and do it. So I'm like, that's not helping me, bro, because I'm the physical memory guy, you know? So like when he does it, I'm like, oh, God, that's not good. Thank you, but no thank you. So yeah, I still have fun finding projects because I don't know what project it is. And I didn't set it up. Alright, so that's done. I like this. This is Abyss.
What?
Abyss. The Abyss theme.
What is that? Is it JSON?
No, I mean like the letter, colors and all that. Because I change mine every time now.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't even think, that's right, you can download all this
It's
package.
basically all I do is like I go to my, when I'm open like this, I could go in my code and preferences and then color theme. And every project I do, I just change it. So like even, and I even have this one called Dracula. Dracula.
Dracula.
Yeah, see right in here. Let me show you. I just open up all that, and it goes. It has all these. See
Did you see
Dracula.
that and
Dracula stuff. Pretty fun
I
stuff.
would hope not.
I'm gonna try Dracula. See what it looks like.
Black and red.
It should be.
Do you remember that night crowd?
It doesn't really look like Dracula, but I guess yeah. Because when it's like
I
this
have,
greenish
I've heard
color.
that, that is where I heard that.
Yeah.
So every time I've ever heard that.
Over here?
Dracula.
Yeah.
What?
I'm using a Dracula thing.
Oh, you switched again?
That's what's all.
Your eyes were bleeding?
My eyes are bleeding.
Alright,
All right, here we go.
so now we're going to install Tailwind. npm i-d Tailwind CSS. I'll make this bigger. And then hit enters. And then we'll see how.
Create a, sorry, a folder in a terminal. What's the MKDR?
Mhm. Yeah, mkdir.
Okay,
If it
so what
says
did you
it's
say
not a
there?
command, what did I do wrong? Well, I included it earlier, but, yeah, I don't know. It's not on there.
Maybe had a typo or.
The MK space?
No, it's all one
Okay,
word.
that's what it is.
Yeah, mkdir all
What did you
one
ask? What
word.
did you tell me to do? That was messing around.
What?
Well, I did. I
Just
did
that?
that. I ran that.
You ran that?
Oh my goodness.
npm i-d Tailwind CSS.
All right.
Okay, and then run npx Tailwind CSS init. And then we're gonna make directory source, and we'll just do source for now. Okay, and then we're gonna touch source index.html and source styles.css. Yep. So you should LL should see node modules, package lock, package JSON source, tailwind config, and if you LL source, you should see index HTML style CSS. Good?
LL, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
LL source.
Click. Download.
Whew.
All the hairs.
From LL.
Yeah. I looked at my source file. And I was like,
I have files. They are empty. All right. Now let us open up our Tailwind config file. And it should be fairly empty like so. And in content, we're going to add a string,
this Tailwind config.
Command P, and then type Tailwind, and it will pull it right up. Source, **, slum, dot, HTML or JS. Wow. So this is called a blob.
So what is the blob doing?
It says any folder within source and any file within any of those folders that is HTML or JS as the file type, yeah, the extension of the file. Or I think it's a glob, actually, is what it's called.
Something that the stars.
Eight.
Do you have it inside of a string?
Nope.
So say a /* is a comment. And then once you get that, open up your styles CSS. By doing Command P and then typing styles. So,
No, that's
We
that
got
was
it?
a download. Was that a download?
no, we just made it.
Oh, okay.
Okay. We're going to do @tailwind base, @tailwind components, and @tailwind utilities. And once you have that, open up the extensions, which is this little thing here. Type Tailwind CSS. And there's this one that says by Tailwind Labs. It's got a, I don't know if that check mark is verified maybe?
This publisher has verified ownership of tailwindcss.com.
Yes.
Which one are we opening?
Extensions.
Oh, okay.
And then type Tailwind CSS and
Okay.
install this Tailwind CSS
Okay.
IntelliSense. This will make your life amazing while
Question
working.
on that.
Yes.
What is Docker used for?
Docker is a container that
So
you,
that is right. The
yeah, this
the
guy?
ship thing?
yeah. So you use it to create containers around your code so that you can ship out your whole entire project as like the server and everything. And then if somebody else has Docker, they can just install it and run it. And they don't have to, shouldn't have to do anything if you've set it up correctly.
Okay.
So we use them at work. I don't really use them. So, because our Docker containers on the front end are just like an Nginx server, and then it serves a static single page app.
Okay.
So I do create Dockers, but I don't really ever pull anybody's Docker and run it. All right, everybody has the extension? Okay, we can close the extensions toolbar. We have this style CSS finished. This is Tailwind specific, so this @Tailwind thing is not going to be like a normal CSS. This is because we're going to run a function that runs across this. This will be generated into something else. Okay, so and speaking of that, we'll need to have. I guess we'll want to have an output CSS. So let's I want to move this out of source into no, that's right. Well, is it? No. Yeah, I want to move this out in here.
Where'd you put it?
Actually, we'll just rename it. Just rename it from style CSS to input CSS. And then create another file and call that one style CSS. In source, yep. So all of it's still in source. Does that make sense? And then once you do that, open package.json, and we're going to add a script here, build::css. Let's see, I think since we already have tailwind CSS, we can just do tailwind CSS build /source input.css -o /source /styles.css. Okay, so this calls a Tailwind script that expects some sort of type of script to run. So we're telling it to run a build script, and then it expects to have an input. So I don't have to tell it I'm giving an input, it just expects it. And then this -o is a flag that says, and the output should be this file. So I have to give it this, or else it will default to somewhere else. I don't know where it defaults to, but I want it to do style CSS. Okay, everybody got that? Okay, so now in our terminal, we're going to run npm run build CSS. It wants an I. Oh. Let's change this to use npx because I want to use the watch. So npx tailwind, get rid of build, give it a -i, and then at the end do --watch. That guy. So it should be npx at the first. Remove the word build.
Okay.
Add a -i before the input CSS, and at the end --watch. Then run it again, and it should just hang. It'll probably say that it did it, and it'll just hang. npm run build CSS. You should be able to push up and just hit enter. So it'll say rebuilding, and then it'll just kind of sit there. It won't give you your prompt back. Like this. No utility classes were detected in your source files. If this is unexpected, double check the content. Okay, so that's good. All right, everybody got that? And it's running, and it says this stuff's cool. Okay, now let us open our index in HTML, and we will type doc, hit enter or tab, or you can do HTML:5, does the same thing. Tailwind, awesome. And now we are set up for using Tailwind. So, what is Tailwind? You all used Bootstrap a little bit, kind of, sort of? Perfect. That's okay, because I don't like Bootstrap personally. But essentially, all of these are CSS frameworks, right? Tailwind is, Bootstrap is, Material UI is another one. What you looking for?
HTML. I don't see it.
You're in it.
And there's nothing there.
Yeah, you type doc and hit tab
I was wrong.
in the HTML. Well, we got two of them for it.
Yeah, I know, because I didn't see it, so I built one. I made one. So I got to erase one.
Do the one in the source.
I one on source here.
Yeah.
Delete. Gotcha.
Well, one more thing we have to do is we gotta actually pull in the CSS, right? So link.
Oh, you say keep the one that's in
CSS.
source.
Yeah.
What?
Keep the one that's in source?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Get rid of the
So
other
delete
one.
this one. Okay.
And then I actually, the input CSS I still have in source.
Oh, okay. You still have
So,
it.
yeah, because I think in your package JSON, you probably are expecting it in source,
I
right?
was
For the
thinking
package
something
JSON.
else, like something way,
Harder than
yeah. Yes.
Yeah, so,
You know,
So now-
Thanks.
are you running?
Yeah, it should be.
Okay.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
should be.
you're probably okay.
Yeah, I'm okay.
So,
And what's next after that?
in the
Oh,
HTML,
HTML, okay.
type doc, DOC. Is your caps lock on?
No,
Or did it type in caps?
I did it.
No, don't type in caps.
Just, okay.
Then hit tab.
There we go. Okay,
And then add that link for the style sheet.
okay.
And then we're ready. Okay, so Tailwind allows us to, there's a couple different ways frameworks work, right? So with Bootstrap, it has like a button class, and you add that button class to a button, and it makes the button look how it should. If you add the primary class or the secondary class also to the button, it changes the way the button looks. If you wanted a card, you have a div and you add some classes to it, and it turns it into a card, right? So a lot of frameworks work in that way. Tailwind CSS instead gives you a bunch of utility classes, and then you use those utility classes to create however you want your app to look. So if you want a button, then you add a bunch of utility classes to a button to make it look a specific way. And then you can also take those utility classes and like combine them together, and we'll get into that later, but to make other components, right? So let's just grab the, in fact, because we just barely built this last time, if I look at kitchen sink, happy mentors, is this the one that we did last time? Yes. Designs. Open this. Okay, so let's together we'll build this thing again, but this time we're going to build it, and I'm not going to care too much about the colors this time, but we're going to build it based on, or with light wind or tailwind. Okay, so let me also show you best way to get to know how any of these work is to go to their site and read the documentation around it. So a lot of times they'll have these like core concepts or some sort of like tutorial built into the docs where you can go and read about, okay, this is how it works. So they have this chit chat thing, and they show you this is a standard way to make this chit chat thing is to add all these classes, right? And then write all this CSS for the classes. And this is kind of the more standard way to do this. It makes you have these named classes, which is nice for when you're looking at it, you know, okay, this is a notification and this is the logo wrapper, but it also takes a lot of energy to like come up with all the names for it and to make sure that they're semantically correct. And then what happens when you need something to wrap the notification, then you have to come up with like chat notification wrapper, and you have extra stuff, right? When all it is going to be like a Flex container. So this code is this same code, but just with Tailwind utility classes. So they didn't write any CSS, just added all these classes to it, and it made that, which is the same thing that this made up here, right? So this is where Tailwind kind of shines. Okay. Yes. So you can read through all of these if you want to get into all the different things that it does, but we'll get into some of these, like how to use different states and responsiveness. The other thing it has is down here it will have all these different styles. So the pre-flight styles, it'll have, which is kind of like your reset styles that we use, right? And then it will have the different types. So how do I do, yes, right? Layout. Okay, here's a container class, right? So you have different containers, and the container size is going to be based on the breakpoint. But if you just give it this container, you have width 100. So it's always going to be 100 unless you give it a breakpoint, which we'll get into when we start going. But you can give it this container class to kind of give it, you know, a specific width where you want it to have a max width at. Does that make sense? Another thing is, let's say I want to have a flex component, then I can add the flex class name to it, and it will automatically make a flex container, and then I can add different flex properties. So flex basis, direction, wrap, they all have their own classes. So the nice thing about this is, because we just installed that IntelliSense plugin, I don't have to memorize all this. I just need to know, oh, I remember I want to use flex here, and so then I can start typing flex, and it should pop up and be like, oh, are you trying to use these? So let us try this. Ready? Okay, so first off, let's hit go live. So, and we'll run a live server on this here index HTML. Okay, it has nothing in it, so I'm going to, on the body, add a class, and we're going to have BG is for background, and notice as I type BG, it pops all these up. You should see these two. So this is where you want to make sure that you don't just clear this. If you did clear it, Control Space will reopen the pop-up. Okay. But these are going to be all the different classes. So most of the time when you're looking for a color, you're going to give it a prefix dash the color, and then how strong the color is, 100 to 900. Okay, so 100 being the lightest, 900 being the darkest of that same color. So let's say I want the background to be this slate 900. Okay, save it, and it does nothing. So we'll say width full, height full, and then we will go question our sanity, because that should be oh, not even getting any of the classes. Refresh. There. I shouldn't have to refresh. I'm gonna be really mad if I have to refresh. Doesn't the web server automatically refresh for us? I thought it did that. I'm gonna be super upset if I have to do more. Okay, so I don't think I need those. Okay, so just background slate 900 should give us that dark background. No, I added those thinking that this had refreshed, but it apparently hadn't.
Turn black
Try refreshing.
Refresh it.
Try refreshing again.
Refresh
The
again.
background is on the, it's on the computer.
Yes.
Right?
What is that?
Don't print it.
Yeah.
Are you guys seeing this in your terminal, that it's rebuilding?
No.
So then we'll see your package person.
Something's wrong with it.
Okay, that's right. Let me see your telling config.
Maybe because I'm using crack.
That's
That's probably what it is. I'm using crack with these, so it doesn't seduce.
Remove that space.
Blood.
There we go. Okay.
What? How you? What? What?
I just deleted a space, guys.
Oh, that's what it was? Oh,
Where?
okay.
Where?
Where was your space?
It was in my tailwind config.
Oh, tailwind
The
config.
tailwind config, silly stars, because I didn't have the.
Ah,
W on the tail.
Maybe that's what I
space
have.
and W.
maybe that's my
I
problem.
kept commenting on
Go refresh.
Issues?
Okay, go to style CSS. Okay, close that. Go to your packages. Okay, go to your index HTML. Add an S on styles. Okay. Let's see, Christian. Okay, that looks right. You're running it?
Yeah.
Over here?
Okay. But it's not rebuilding at all. Okay, go to your package JSON. Okay, go to indexation now. Okay, go to tell and configure. That one should be a curly brace before the issue.
It's so unique, each one so far.
Got two more.
Alright.
Okay.
We're testing your ability as a teacher.
Yeah.
Everybody's unique problem.
Scroll that way, let me see what the.
This is actually a troubleshooting boot camp.
Get him ready.
Scroll that way. I just want to see this line set up. Okay, that's right. Go to your
Whatever you're
settings.
in, double or it's just another one.
You
So like,
check curly brace after the JS.
It's just another one.
I think that's what we did earlier.
Yeah, earlier.
So far, it's all been different?
It's all been
Let's see.
different.
Is that, you know, the exercise that you're doing for staff?
Yeah, that looks right. So go to your,
So
so
far-
delete
I
this.
discovered that today when I
Old
did my
style?
second
Yeah,
proposal.
delete this.
Oh, maybe that's what it
Live
is.
server.
Because of the-
Go to your package JSON.
Yeah, it was weird because I could have sworn it
Okay.
wasn't working on the
Index
HTML
element.
too, but then it worked.
Change this to be styles.
Ah, I followed somebody else like
Okay,
that.
go to index
How's your garden going?
HTML.
It's not.
Had to wrestle with it for a while.
Yeah, I still have.
Change this to be styles.
But it worked with the mode and stuff.
And
Some of your
then
hands full, just now.
go to your
Yeah.
terminal.
Just
It's
does,
so
yeah.
true, I just have to,
That's
I
right.
have to put a really solid amount of time into
And
this.
run npm
Yeah,
run
I
build.
can't even keep up with the weeding right
Colon
now. The weeds
CSS.
are like this tall. Sure.
Exactly what you mean.
It drives me crazy.
Okay.
It wasn't
Now if you go to your
aggressive.
browser, it should
Because
be
it's
there.
been rain, sun, rain,
Yeah.
sun.
Yeah.
That's what it was. It was that. I just went-
Yeah, right.
Go back to your thing
I know.
and delete the
Sometimes
style
Sometimes like
CSS.
within a 10-minute.
Yeah.
Multiple times.
I like that when it's raining, I can be like, let's just
Alright.
wait a few minutes.
They all had one thing, I had multiple things. I like that.
No, everybody had multiple things,
Oh, okay, not just me. Okay.
and they were all different. So, all right. So, notice we now have a dark background. We've written no CSS. If you go look in your styles CSS, there's a bunch of CSS in there that you did not write.
That's true.
That was all generated
Wow, that's very nice.
because you used some class. So
Wow.
that
So
that thing is,
Line middle, underlined in yellow.
I don't know.
Travis is waiting.
It's generated CSS, so I'm never going to look at it or care what it has in it,
I like that.
right? So we will never touch style CSS because it is a generated file. But if we ever have to make our own CSS stuff, we'll put it in that input CSS, and then we'll allow Tailwind to generate the style CSS and take whatever we wrote to it. So the only time we would use that is if we wanted to reuse certain looks, like we make a card and we want to reuse that card class other places, we can create a card class and reuse some styles from Tailwind. Okay, so now we're going to do just that and make a card. So, okay, so we're going to say div, and we're going to add a class to it. Okay, and this class is going to have a, let's see, this was like a 30 pixel margin, right? So margin, and then notice it will pop up here, and if you scroll through these with your keyboard, it'll tell you how big that margin is as you're scrolling through. Do you see those? Might be off to the side if yours is like not. It's kind of, yeah. So we want it about 30 pixels. So we're going to do margin M-7. Okay, and then we also want some padding, which is about the same. So at P-7. Okay. And then we're going to have the background color of this. For now, we're just going to have a single color. We'll do slate, and we're going to do 500. Okay. And then we're going to do width full. Okay. And we will now put a, let's do how did we do. I guess we'll put that in an H or in a header. How did we do? And then we'll do a paragraph and have, I'm just going to type lorem. I don't want to type all that stuff. So I'll put some lorem ipsum in there. Okay. So now if I look at my browser, I should see a card. It's full width.
Can you tell me how you did that, Google?
Lorem, type lorem, and then yeah, hit enter.
Oh, gotcha. Never knew how you got that so fast. Damn, it's fast.
Okay, so you'll notice that because I'm using a margin, it's doing some weird stuff here. So what I'm going to do is on the body, I'm also going to make this a flex. So we'll say flex, and then I want it to be a line. Actually, let's see, it's justify, center, and items center. Okay, so this is justify content, align items, and now I've got it in the middle. Maybe I'll go 600 on my slate background, 700, 800. Okay, 900 was what the other one was, right? So 800, 700, 600.
That wood? That's behind me?
It may have been my computer. I think the browser went white for a second.
It was not computer.
Okay. So,
My computer's
Yes.
so very special.
Strike.
I have a very special computer. It's like lightning.
okay, so this has a rounded border.
Uh-huh.
So let's add the class rounded. And do we want it to be rounded 2XL because it's kind of a bigger round, right? Does that look right? Ish, maybe 3XL. Yeah, we'll do that one. And then we're going to say on this header, we're going to add a class to it. And it's going to have text, white. Okay, text, let's do extra large. For extra large. Yeah, pretty close. Maybe 3. Okay, and then the paragraph class equals text gray. Let's go with 300. And then actually let's go 400, just slightly darker. Okay, we're going to add a little bit of margin on the bottom of the header just to push that paragraph down. It's like, I don't know, what do you think? 20 pixels, maybe? Looks like we need it on top too. Okay, so we can do that with margin like we did above, but instead of just margin, we want it to be the margin on the top and bottom, which is our y-axis, right? So margin y. And then we want about 20 pixels, so we'll scroll down until we find 20. So it's margin y dash 5. And we get our, okay. Let's say that line height maybe on this is a little bigger. So I haven't used line height yet, so I'm just gonna start guessing. Text. Okay, so I don't know this one, so I would go to the docs. Okay, and then I would look for margin, space between, width, sizing, typography. So typography, line height, leading.
Of course.
I should have known.
Why didn't we think of that?
Should have known. All right, so, and I just want it slightly bigger. So we're just gonna have to play with the size. Let's do that and see what happens. That's smaller. No. Sure. That looks great. Maybe 7. Yeah, 7's great. Okay. And then I think I can then say under this paragraph, we'll throw a div in, and this div will hold all of our buttons. So we're going to add a class. We made this flex, justify between, so a space between unjustified content. Okay, and we're going to add button times 5 and hit tab. Oh, and hit, well, button dot times 5, and that'll add the classes too, which is nice. So if the thing went away, then control spacebar will bring it back up. So you can click that. Should add a whole bunch of buttons, which will be annoying.
Button times 5. What did you say?
Button dot
times 5. Yeah.
times 5, and then since the thing went away, hold control and hit spacebar, and then hit enter.
How'd that go?
Enter.
There we go. Okay. Gotcha.
Okay. Okay, so now it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is where we would want to learn how to make reusable classes, right? Because we're going to have to do essentially the same thing on all of these. So I'm going to save. I'm going to see all my buttons show up. Okay, but I want the background to be a darker gray. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my cursor in this first class. If all of yours are lined up like mine, then hold Command Option and push down until my cursor is in all of those.
I've been wondering,
command option and then down.
Option?
Command
Command
down.
option, and then hit down until you get to the bottom one.
Oh, okay.
Very nice.
Okay?
Isn't that pretty?
So now we're gonna start typing, and everything we type will go in all of those classes. Okay, so we're gonna say background, and I'm gonna say gray, and we'll say, I don't know what color gray. Wish I could see all of them. Usually I can, but I feel like
Command option down.
let's go with like 700 for now. If I go look at the browser. Let's say also border none, so we don't get the weird button borders. And then let's say text white. I don't remember if it was white. We'll change it if not. Let's see. It was more to the gray. What was the gray we used up higher? 400? Gray 400. Okay. And then we want it to be rounded, full. So it makes it a circle. And we're gonna do flex and space, or let's see, justify center and item center, save. And then it will,
Justify center, items center.
flex, justify center, item center,
I'm gonna go back and do these individually.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
because typing for suckers.
yeah, typing is for suckers.
All right.
Okay. So now if I look at my browser, refresh. Oh, and I need to do a height and width. Oh no, I lost my cursors. So because they're all the same thing, I can just do this and then hit Command D, and it will select the next one and the next one and the next one and the next one, and then I just
Also wanting to know how that works.
Yeah.
I'm still,
you still got them all.
I still have them all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're gonna add. My computer is very special. Height. Let's see, height. Why isn't height working? Come on.
Yes, computer's not.
2. I don't know how big that is because it's not. It's not
8
happy.
pixels.
Okay, let's go bigger. We want.
Oh, big, go home.
Let's go height 11 and width 11 as well. It's terrible color.
It's
So
all blended up.
yeah, background color 700 was bad. So we're gonna do background color of 500. There we go. Oh, but then our text color needs to be maybe at 300.
Oh no, I lost my.
Okay,
Joe Network did it again.
Yeah,
ever.
because I didn't. 400.
Did I have I had a 700 before, right? So maybe 600. Yeah, like that. 600 and 400.
And
And then also we need the buttons to have like 20 pixels around the bottom, and I don't know what that is, like maybe 30 pixels above. So we'll throw that here. So margin, and we want margin top on this one because it's gonna be a little bit different.
so you got.
Up on the
Oh, okay.
div that's
Yeah.
containing all the buttons.
Mhm.
And we're gonna do that one at 7 and margin bottom at Yes. Yep. And then MX is both left and right, but ML is left and MR is right. So, yes. And just getting to know them. So this is going to be every CSS framework. They're all going to do it differently. And so when you choose one, you just have to go read how they do it. What are the classes, essentially, right?
I like how like class number 1 is like, you're not gonna code inline style.
Right?
This is an inline style.
It's not the same thing, but it's.
Yeah, the nice thing about this, as opposed to inline styling, is you can still use media queries and hover. Well, you can't do that with inline styles. Okay? But it just depends on where you work. Sometimes you'll use stuff like this, sometimes you'll roll your own, sometimes you'll do it in the JavaScript.
You
So
change.
it's
Which
good to
one
know
you
all the
change?
things.
The background. 600,
600,
yeah?
600 and 400, yeah.
Yeah. But how come mine still looks like it did before launch though? And I did refresh. Still the same. Still that same.
Just
Yeah.
I don't know.
Weird, yeah. Okay. Just curious. 'Cause-
background gray 600. Try saving it again. Maybe it didn't reload.
Oh, okay.
That's weird because it misaligned it.
Okay.
Go back to your stuff. Go to your terminal. So come up here and save.
Come over here to the top.
Yeah.
There you go.
I don't know.
Yeah, me neither. That's fine. I'll just keep going. I'll figure it out later.
As long as it's all.
Yep, it is. It is all. It's all in. It's all right. Yeah. H11, W11. Okay. Yeah. It's just ever since that last command. It's just
Rounded full is the circle.
yeah, me neither. Yeah, mine's either around still. So I can't really catch.
Can you scroll right in? Is that just how they are? Yeah, well, the text is red.
Oh, yeah, that's just that.
Yeah, that
Oh,
one
there it is.
changed.
Now it changed. So it's backwards.
Oh, what is that, H&M?
No, I have it at
Oh,
600.
600, yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah, 600. Okay.
H&M, okay, that makes sense.
So I had to go back and do it again, yeah? Go back and hit that and erase it and put 6 again? Is that
Well, I
what
had
you
it. I had it at 4. I changed it to 4. So save it again and go back over,
I heard you want
and then go back to your refresh it. Yeah, I mean it refreshed because now the 4 is the same.
Yep.
That's weird.
That's weird, yeah? That's cool. All right.
Go up to your other stuff. Get the right code on the rest of it.
Yeah.
Slate 600. Slate 900.
I need to get some changes, but I changed everything with you.
I did Slate 700.
Yep. Oh, 600.
Surprising. So it's a Monday too.
Is that the problem?
I'll go back and
No,
see.
who's gonna work there? That's what
So maybe it was just a contrast issue.
Yeah, contract problem.
No.
There we go.
Okay.
Thanks.
There it is.
It was just the, yeah, you know, the language always, it's always the language.
Right.
Barriers.
So now we need to have on hover, our buttons need to be orange, right?
Right.
Okay. So we're going to, at the end of this, if you grab the last ones, if you don't have the cursor still, then you can do the Command D trick to get them again.
Command D.
Yep. So, highlight something that's the same in all of them.
Okay.
So I usually do like the
Recommended.
last class plus the, yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And then yeah.
And then keep doing Command D until all of them are selected.
There we go.
Okay. Okay, and then add a space after with 11, and we're going to add hover, colon, and then background, orange. We'll go orange 500. Okay. And then hover, colon, text, white. Okay. So now, when I hover, I should see the orange.
What happened?
I had to refresh, but it did work-ish.
I was looking at my round. Look at that. My round is set. I was like this.
Your width went away.
Yeah, my width went away. Let's go back.
Go back because you probably overrode it with the other
Oh,
stuff.
there it is. What happened to my width? It's just totally gone.
Yeah, it was probably selected when you selected them all.
Oh, yeah,
And then
yeah,
instead
yeah.
of pushing it to the
Okay.
side,
Gotcha. So I'll just go back in and
you're just
do
doing it in one though.
Yeah, I'll do that one and then I'll just
All of them need it though.
so just copy paste.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay.
My hover does not work.
Try refreshing.
Oh,
Try hovering.
I am.
Okay. I will look.
Let's go out with.
buttons.
Go back to your code and try saving it again. So maybe what's happening is Tailwind didn't got the save. Go to your terminal. It does not look like you're running. Session, contents, something.
Yeah, that was it.
Oh, yeah, turn that run.
So I have to run.
Yeah.
Build CSS and have it run.
Yes, because each time that you change the HTML, then, so the tailwind thing is smart in that it only adds the classes that you're using so that you don't have this giant bloated CSS file that you're not using anything in. So as you change your HTML, that's what we put in that tailwind config, is to watch HTML and JS files. And as you change the HTML file, it's reloading and rebuilding that CSS file and adding the classes that you were using. Okay? So, yeah, when you're working with Tailwind, you have to continually run that
Tailwind, and that's why we used watch.
So this is in the config. Is where it's making these changes.
So the way it works is in config, we give it this content, saying anytime any of this content, or we're going to look at this content to decide what we're building, right? So HTML and CSS should have all of it. And then in our input CSS, we told it we wanted to use these three pieces of Tailwind.
Yeah.
Okay, and so it's basing it off of those, and then our package JSON, we have this build CSS file. So it says go grab the input CSS and create the style CSS from it, and watch. And then it's also this Tailwind CSS looks at the config and says what's the content as well, and says all right, any HTML or JS file that has one of the Tailwind classes in it, I'll pull all those in too. Okay, and then if we go look at our styles CSS, now we can see it has all this stuff in it that we didn't write. And if I go to the very bottom, you're gonna see hover text white hover, hover background orange 500 hover, because those are the ones I just added. So it's building out each of the, it already has all those classes in Tailwind, but it's only adding them if I'm using them.
That's cool.
Use Tailwind in React
You can. Yeah, yeah. Okay, so, but that's how it knows what to do. Okay. All right. So, when you're using it with React, you can tie it to the start command, and we would do that. So it knows how to build it. Each time you change anything, it'll update. All right, so now we have those. We need like the star thing, but I don't want to go get the SVG image. So all we have left is that bottom button, but you get the idea of how Tailwind allows us to just kind of throw stuff together, and you can rapidly prototype things because you're not writing CSS classes and everything for it.
I like Tailwind.
So,
Oh, like in,
It's all
in
together.
one
It's all.
line.
I love it,
It's
man.
like,
yes.
Easier for me.
Right.
Easier for me to. Yeah.
So I want to assign a challenge to have each of you pick one of the projects you've already built and just take the index HTML file and delete all the classes out of it and put it into this project that we just did, so you don't have to reset up Tailwind and rebuild those with Tailwind.
okay, I totally interact for you.
But not that one. So there's a whole bunch of other stuff we didn't talk about too. So there's we can also get shadows. Shadow to XL. And it just added the shadow here. So if we change this to like Slate 100. Isn't it shadow? Thought it was. Maybe it's box shadow.
Hi, everyone.
Good night.
Be safe.
There it is. Had to give it a color. So you can add shadows,
Oh, nice.
you can do all sorts of fun things.
Thank you.
See yous.